Hello, welcome to this video that is going to be my media log for the month of June. This will include all the manga I read throughout the month, books, music I listen to, and whatever else I feel like including, honestly. There will be timestamps if you are only interested in a specific thing, but as always we'll start with the manga. It's almost the end of June and I haven't read much, to be honest. It's been a busy month for me in my personal life, so we'll just go over what I have read, which includes volume 4 of the manga for The Other World's books depend on the bean counter. So at the end of May, I read the first volume of the light novel for The Other World's books depend on the bean counter, and I kind of became obsessed with the world again. I just bought the second volume of the light novel, so I'm gonna read that soon. I caught up with the manga, just everything about this world I've been really engrossed in. This fourth volume kind of starts a new arc. There's a new added layer to the main relationship in the story. But if you know nothing about this one, it's an isekai one, where this businessman, accounting guy from Japan gets isekai'd into this new world on accident because this world was trying to summon this holy maiden girl and he kind of just gets dragged in during the summoning. So he wasn't really supposed to be here, and he decides that he wants to work because that's kind of all he knows, so he ends up working for the accounting department of the palace there, kind of uncovering some of the secrets in the palace and just interacting with the inhabitants of this world, including this knight character who is the love interest, and there's kind of some, forced proximity elements, so really good. I really like it. I recommend if you want kind of a romance, isekai, political, fantasy type beat, for sure. And speaking of that, I also read something in a similar vein from my library. I read the first 3 volumes of Who Made Me a Princess, because that's all they had. And after I read these 3 volumes, I thought about it for like 5 minutes, and then I bought myself copies and the rest of the volumes that are out. So I think that's a testament to how much I enjoyed these. I don't know, I've really been liking this sort of isekai, fantasy, royal palace, a little bit of villainous type stuff, and this is right up that alley. This one is about our main character, who was like a human adult lady. She dies and gets reincarnated into this novel as the daughter of the emperor, but in this novel, the emperor ends up killing his daughter. So knowing this, she is trying to, survive in the world, maybe win him over this time around. She has like this long-lost sister that is the main character of the novel that comes in, charms the emperor, and she gets kind of cast aside. So in the original novel, she is kind of like the villainous, evil stepsister type character, but we're following the main character as she is like a baby all the way into like teenagerhood, so she gets the chance to kind of rewrite the narrative. And I don't know, the art is gorgeous, the characters are lovable, another one where there is some political intrigue, magic, potential romance. These are like her love interests kind of right here. And yeah, I really love it. I wish this one was on Webtoon, but it's on Tapas, so I can't just like breeze ahead and read it all. But I looked it up and the series ends in 9 volumes and the release is pretty consistent, so that should be out by the beginning of next year. So I won't have to wait too long. Like I said, I bought all the rest of the volumes that are out. Thank you to my library for having these volumes at all. It was a really random pickup for me. I just strolled in there, saw a manhwa that looked kind of isekai-y, picked it up, and it rocked my world. So yeah, highly recommend Who Made Me a Princess from these first 3 volumes for sure. And that's all the manga manhwa I've read this month so far, and I'll be back at the end of the month to see if I read anything else. Okay, hello, it is the end of the month and I'm here to talk about all the rest of the manga I read. A bulk of it was me trying to catch up with my LGBT+ related TBR, including a bunch of volume 1s. The video should be out by now, but I did do like a whole dedicated volume 1 tri-vlog on a bunch of titles, so I'll kind of just breeze through these here. But I read the complete collection of Art Colors, technically 3 volumes by Kenguro Tagame. This one was a coming-of-age story about a guy in high school coming to terms with his sexuality, coming out, his feelings about that, and he meets an older gay man that becomes kind of his mentor throughout the story. And overall it was okay. There was one little thing at the end that kind of ruined the whole story for me, but other than that I thought this was a relatable look into kind of struggling with your sexuality as a teen, a good coming-of-age type story. Then I read She Likes Gays But Not Me. This one is one I have a lot of mixed feelings about. I talk about it more in the video, but this one is about a guy in high school who is gay. He finds out that his classmate is a fujoshi, which she wants to keep a secret, so they kind of form this relationship and start dating while they're both kind of hiding something about themselves to the world. But our main character is kind of having an illicit affair with an older man, and he's really struggling with kind of heteronormativity and wanting a family and kids in the future, but not knowing how that can coincide with his gayness. So it's a hard one to read and also talk about, but I think there is things to be garnered from this for sure. Then I read Senpai This Can't Be Love. This one is about a guy and his mentor at work that he has secretly admired for a long time. He was the reason he even got into the field, and it's about their kind of budding relationship. Overall, I thought this one was okay, nothing amazing, but not offensive. Then I read This Monster Wants to Eat Me. This one is about a girl who is very depressed after her family has passed away. She wants to die, and this monster mermaid appears in her life and says that she will eat her, but the time is not right yet. So it definitely has kind of sapphic vibes, a little bit of The Summer Hikaru Died energy, but I also thought this one ended up just being kind of okay. Flower of Life Volume 1, this one is by Fumi Yoshinaga, who I want to read more works by because I love What Did You Eat Yesterday? And this one was kind of a cute high school set one, slice of life. Not sure if it'll go in a romance direction, but I really liked kind of the characters and the discussions in it. We've all been there, teens kind of bumbling through life, so yeah, and the main character also had leukemia that he has recovered from, so he's kind of also getting back to school life and being around kids his age and stuff like that. So I thought it was pretty interesting, love the art, can't wait to read more. And then I read a bunch of digital titles from my library, starting with If My Favorite Pop Idol Made It to the Bukudan, I Would Die. This one was a really cute one about this girl who is a big fan of this idol group, and her fave is kind of the least popular idol in the group. So she makes it her mission to kind of, you know, cheer this girl on with all her might. But from the idol's perspective, it seems like she kind of has a little crush on this fan. So I'm really interested to see the kind of direction of the story. I love stories about idols in general, so this was right up my alley. Then I read this one-shot Snow Fairy, which I really loved. It's about this photographer who goes up to Hokkaido to do some shoots, but he gets stranded in the snow and this local farmer comes and helps him out, and they develop a relationship from there. Super cute, super wholesome, highly recommend. Then we have Confessions of a Shy Baker. Honestly, I thought it was kind of just a ripoff of What Did You Eat Yesterday? About an older man and his boyfriend. His hobby is baking, and it's very slice of life, just them kind of discussing what's going on with them. Our main character is scared of being outed at work, while his partner is very open, so yeah, they're kind of just navigating that. There's kind of some aspects, and I just couldn't separate it from a work that I already love, so ended up thinking that one was kind of just okay. Then I read Send Them a Farewell Gift for Lost Time. This one is by Kokomi, who wrote Restart After Coming Back Home, which I really loved. And this one I thought was good. It's very explicit though, so that is kind of just my personal taste that I didn't like it that much because of those aspects. But it's about two guys who break up due to some miscommunication, and they kind of just can't stay away from each other even after breaking up. So it's about them kind of rekindling / trying to figure out what went wrong, that sort of thing. Then I read volume 1 of My Beautiful Man. This one I didn't really like. It's about a guy in high school who is getting kind of bullied by the popular clique, and kind of the most popular, handsome one is not a direct bully to him. He's kind of just a bystander, but our main character gets infatuated with this guy, and I'm not a fan of the whole kind of victim-bully dynamic, so that's why that turned me off from that. It was getting a little creepy too with the infatuation part of it, so I don't know, I don't really recommend it. But one I do recommend is Acid Town, so I ended up reading up to volume 5 of this one. This one is about our main character. He kind of lives in a grungy, grimy area of the city. He's doing under-the-table jobs to pay for his brother's medical bills. And when he gets caught trying to steal something, he ends up becoming kind of a lackey for this Yakuza boss. But little does he know, this Yakuza boss is very entwined with his life already. And you see how the main character kind of got into this situation. There's a lot of dealings with kind of the Yakuza politics, the underground, the underworld type stuff. Very gritty, a lot of triggering topics in this one. I would very heavily compare it to something like Banana Fish. I haven't read this one, but Twittering Birds Never Fly, I think, is also kind of in this similar vein. So not really an enjoyable read, but it's addicting, it's intriguing. I tend to like kind of stories like this. I would deem it as more of a psychological thriller. There are potential romance aspects, and there are definitely some toxic romance aspects that are not romanticized though, which is why, you know, I don't mind reading something like this, while not liking to read something like My Beautiful Man, where I think I'm supposed to be rooting for the couple. So yeah, Acid Town, definitely some really messed up aspects, but I think the world is fleshed out really well. I love the kind of gang politics stuff. I'm rooting for our main character. And you get a lot of backstory on even, you know, the villains, so it makes them kind of sympathetic in your eyes too. So everyone is a little bit morally gray in the story, but that adds to the intrigue of it in my opinion. And then the last one I read for that video, I read volume 1 of Still Sick. This one is a girl's love about a woman that is secretly a Yuri doujinshi author, and her coworker finds out about this. So it's kind of like a wotakoi situation where they're trying to keep it a secret from the rest of their coworkers. But it turns out this coworker also used to be a mangaka in the past, and our main character is kind of grappling with her feelings towards women, so I'm definitely going to continue with this one. It's only 3 volumes. It's all on Kindle Unlimited. But yeah, similar to My Coworker Has a Secret, wotakoi, that type of thing. So if you're in the mood for that type of story, I would recommend at least the first volume. But like I mentioned, my in-depth thoughts on all these will be in a separate video linked in the card. But other than those, I did also read a lot of other LGBT+ related titles, catching up with some favorites, etc. Starting with, I caught up with kind of everything that I needed to in the Sasaki and Miyano universe. So technically not manga, but I read the 2nd volume of the light novel. Much like the 1st volume, this is kind of just a collection of short stories focusing on different characters and kind of different anecdotes. Here are kind of the chapters. There's some about White Day and some about Miyano's best friend and his girlfriend, their school trip. So they're kind of just like extended versions / different perspectives of some events from the manga. And honestly, this one was just okay. I liked the 1st volume better, but I wasn't mad at it. I'm always clamoring for more Sasaki and Miyano content. So if you're a fan of the series, I would say go ahead and read this, but you're not missing out on anything in my opinion if you don't, if that makes sense. And I had similar feelings about this official comic anthology. So this one is a bunch of guest mangakas writing little stories in the Sasaki and Miyano universe. There's 2 chapters from the actual author, but this feels kind of like a doujinshi almost. A collection of, interpretations and cute small stories from other mangakas. I've seen this a lot in shoujo manga. Sometimes like there'll be chapters at the end, congratulatory type stuff like congrats for making it to 10 volumes, and then it's a little 2-page story from another mangaka, or a crossover between a couple characters. So another one where I don't think this is really necessary to read. You're not missing out on much unless you're a really big fan of the series like me, but even to me this was like not a must read. But what is a must read? Yes, Hirano and Kaguya volume 4. I've talked about this before, but I think I do like them more than Sasaki and Miyano at this point. If you're unfamiliar, this is the spin-off to Sasaki and Miyano about a couple characters in that story and kind of their romance. And I know Sasaki and Miyano was slow burn, but this feels even more slow burn, but in a better way. I don't know how to describe it. I just really like their dynamic, the whole roommate thing going on. And then Kagura's like super serious affections toward Hirano and his, ideals of wanting to have a relationship like his parents. And Hirano is still just kind of confused about the whole situation. He also wants to be serious in trying to return Kagura's feelings, but they're teenage boys. It's kind of a mess, but I really like it and they're super sweet together. So yeah, eagerly awaiting more volumes of this always. And the main volumes of Sasaki and Miyano, I don't know if there's any release dates for anything really coming up. These were coming out like every month, something Sasaki and Miyano related, but I think they kind of exhausted everything. I know the Candy art book is coming out in English, but I already have it in Japanese, so I don't know if I'll get that. But yeah, I love the world and the characters, so I'll pretty much buy anything related, even if it ends up being kind of just okay, like a couple of those. Then I caught up with Cherry Magic Volume 11. I love this series so much. Every volume is good, but this one was especially good. Slight spoilers, I guess, but the main couple is together now, and I feel like we're finally getting some more insight into their relationship and their dynamic, and I don't know, I really like it. Like, I like the chase of people getting together, but sometimes manga ends at that point. Like, they end when the characters get together in a romance. But I like to see the aftermath, and this is what all this is, and it's great. And we're also getting some more action from the side couple. It's a little funny because in the drama adaptation, the timeline is different. And I think, the show producers kind of came up with their own interpretation of their relationship. But I like how it's playing out in the manga much better. And yeah, I could gush about this series for hours. I just love it so much. Highly recommend if you want an office, romance, workplace type dynamic. This volume made me laugh out loud because Tsuge can still hear everyone's thoughts, and him being inside Kurosawa's head, it just takes you back. It just takes you back to the beginning. But yeah, really love it. Really love this kind of post getting together bliss. So good. Then I read volumes 3 and 4 of She Loves to Cook and She Loves to Eat. Just banger after banger. After Kasa-san, this is probably my favorite Girls Love series coming out right now. It's about these two women who are neighbors. One really likes to cook and one really likes to eat. So they start kind of pooling their finances, having dinner parties, eating meals together, but I really like how grounded in reality this seems. The characters are relatable. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. You see the struggles of every character. There's some friend characters introduced in these volumes. One is an asexual lesbian, and one kind of has some issues involving food. So seeing how they handle like their differences and stuff like that is really nice. And then also volume 4, like I was talking about with Cherry Magic, I'm glad that the series is continuing because there's lots more to see. And I'm really excited about this. I know the author is also very vocal in supporting LGBT+ rights in Japan, so that's also important to me. As a lesbian, it is hard for me to read girls' love manga sometimes. I don't know how to describe it, like, maybe I've lost a little bit of faith after reading, like, some bad series. Sometimes the topics hit too hard because they're too relatable. So yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to find good ones, and when I do, it's like a massive treat, and I'm really happy about it. So yeah, highly recommend this series. Relatable, cute, realistic, love it. And then we have volume 5 of I Think Our Son Is Gay. So this is the end of this series. Another one that I found pretty relatable, hit a little too close to home at times, but this one is about a mother who thinks her son is gay, and she's trying to, you know, educate herself to be the best ally that she can be in case he ever comes out to her, or it is the case that he is gay. The son is so cute, so it's kind of a coming-of-age story for him, but it's mainly from the mom's perspective. The dad, or her husband, makes a lot of insensitive remarks, so another theme in the story is kind of her trying to educate him. And by the end here, I feel like it got a little bit repetitive. The ending felt a little bit rushed. Not everything got fully resolved, but I think in a story like this was kind of the best way that it could have wrapped up. Like Our Colors, this is another Own Voices work, and you could tell that this is, you know, a lot from the author's personal experience. I think it's meant to be pretty educational, maybe for a parent, you know, who is kind of going through the same situation. But I really do appreciate the series for what it's doing, and I do recommend it, and I'm glad I read it, and it'll be staying in my collection. Then I read volume 3 of My Summer of You, the sequels? I don't know, this is like the sequel to the sequel. And then they just announced on Twitter that there's gonna be another volume. So really happy about that because this series is so cute. It starts when the main characters are in high school, then their first year of college, and now they're in their second year of college. And it's just cute, wholesome, slice of life vibes. They finally communicate some of their issues that they've been having from the start. They come out to a friend, they meet family members, they have their first time in this one. So yeah, I don't know, I just really like their dynamic, I like the art, I like the characters. I like everything I've read from Nagisa Furuya. I think there's like one more out that I haven't read in English. So always a treat to read one of their series, and I really like this one in particular. And then the last of my LGBT+ reads for the month, I read volume 3 of Delinquent Daddy and Tender Teacher. This is another series where I really like it. It's about a single father and his son's elementary school teacher getting together. And in this volume, it's a new school year. The son is not with his same teacher anymore, so they're navigating that. They're also navigating kind of like the appropriateness of their relationship now that they're not like parent and teacher. There's some jealousy with the son's new teacher. They have an argument over kind of moving in together. I don't know, this one just feels very realistic to me also, grounded in reality. I like the characters. I love stories that feature kids and kind of family dynamics like this, so that's an added bonus. And I think the next volume comes out soon, so very excited about that. And then lastly, I read a couple more volumes of Komi Can't Communicate from the library, volume 27, 28. Komi is a series that is very easy to just pick up, read, short chapters with a little bit of a linear storyline. And in these volumes, they're focusing a little bit on Komi and Tadano's developing relationship, gearing up towards a milestone. I don't want to spoil it, but I think in the next volume it'll happen, so very exciting. And regarding Komi's 100 friends goal, I think she only needs like 20 more, so I don't know if that means the story is like 4/5 of the way through, but that's also kind of exciting, even though I know there's a lot more volumes. So yeah, even though me and Komi had kind of a rocky start, I really warmed up to it. The characters have grown on me. It's an enjoyable story. It's not my favorite thing ever. That's why I don't own the physical volumes. I just read from the library when I get the chance, and it's pretty enjoyable. So yeah, that is all the manga I read this month. Sorry if I kind of sped through some of it. Leave a comment if you want me to elaborate on anything, or just leave a comment in general if you've read any of these, if you liked any of these, what you read this month, etc. And then moving on to the books, I actually have read quite a bit of books this month so far. I found myself gravitating more towards books this month for some reason, But first, let's talk about The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is a book that I devoured pretty much in like one sitting, so needless to say, I did enjoy it. This one is kind of a psychological thriller about this woman who gets hired as the maid housekeeper to this rich family, but immediately she starts to notice that things are off. The wife is trying to make her life miserable pretty much. The child is a spoiled brat. The husband is the seemingly only normal one in the family, but she feels like she can't complain or leave this job because she just got out of prison. She was living in her car. It had been really hard for her to find a job, so she's kind of just grateful to be there. But as you go on in the story, you discover this kind of sinister underlying plot that is really intriguing. I don't want to say anything to spoil it, but yeah, definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. It was a really quick read. I recommend if you can handle some of the themes. I'll put the trigger warnings here, but yeah, I know there's like a couple more books in the series, but this is a really good kind of standalone piece in my opinion. I haven't read a lot in the kind of psychological thriller genre though, so I don't know how this compares to everything else out there on the market. So if you have any other recommendations for me, let me know. I do like kind of domestic thrillers like this. I'm not a big fan of like, you know, serial killers or really like grotesque stuff like that or horror. But if it's like white collar crimes or like, you know, this kind of family dynamic type thriller, I could really get into it. So yeah, I do recommend The Housemaid. Glad I picked it up. I picked it up from my used bookstore. Best like $3 I spent in a while, and I'm glad I read it. Next, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I am a fan of Emily Henry. I've read 3 other of her books. This is not her newest one, but this is just the next one that I had available to me. I had the audiobook on Audible, and then I bought this one from my library for like $1. So yeah, overall, I thought this was like a good summer read. One of my close friends loves the main trope in this, which is like exes to lovers. So she would really love this book. But I don't know how I feel about that dynamic. And in the end, I feel like this book was kind of just okay. If I were to rank it against Emily Henry's other books, my favorite is Book Lovers, then Beach Read, then this would be there, and then People We Meet on Vacation. I didn't like that book really at all. So that's like at the bottom. So this is kind of like in the middle zone, middle lower end. Not bad, but not amazing. The premise is that this group of friends go on this vacation every year to one of the girls' like family vacation homes. But this is the last year they'll be able to stay at this house because her dad is selling it. So they want to make the most of this kind of last trip. But none of the friends know that the main characters are broken up. They had been dating for a long time, they were engaged, but they broke up, didn't tell any of their friends because, you know, they didn't want to break their hearts or ruin their friendship group or whatever. And now it's coming back to bite them in the butt because they have to pretend to still be in the relationship on this trip. They don't want to dampen the mood, they don't want to make anyone upset, so they just kind of play along with this scheme. And of course, in the process, feelings resurface, they remember why they loved each other in the first place, stuff like that. And I liked the characters, I liked the setting, I liked most of their dynamics. Each of the characters is going through their own struggles, and that's where it got a little bit lost for me. It felt too kind of philosophical at times, I guess you could say. I don't like when stories kind of tell instead of show. The main character is in her residency to be a surgeon, but throughout the story she realizes that she was really only doing this for the approval of her family and her friends, and it's not really what she wanted to do. So it was a lot of like repetition of do what makes you happy, don't do stuff for other people, forge your own path, like kind of cheesy messages in my opinion that could have been fleshed out in a better way. So that kind of put a damper on the story for me, if that makes sense. It was also pretty long. I think if some of it was edited down, I would have liked it better. But the concept was not bad, the ideas were there, the execution was just a little bit poor in my opinion. So I ended up giving this like a 3-star. But I am willing to read more of what Emily Henry puts out. I think she has another book already out called Funny Story, maybe? So I'll definitely read that when I can get my hands on it. So yeah, not my favorite of her books, not terrible, but there was just a handful of things that bothered me about this one, if that makes sense. And then next I read this book from the library, 6 Crimson Cranes, and I ended up really enjoying this one. This one is about the princess in this kingdom. She has 6 brothers, their dad is the emperor, and they have this stepmother who is super beautiful but kind of mysterious. And when the main character, the princess, finds out about her stepmother's secret, it's such a big secret that she ends up getting cursed, her brothers get cursed, sent away from the kingdom, and she kind of has to figure out how to survive on her own, break the curse. that kind of vibe. It very much gives Yona of the Dawn, in my opinion, so if you like Yona of the Dawn, I think you would like this. It is technically YA. I think the world building is really good. I like the characters. The main character does act a little bit childish at points, but that is to be expected in my opinion. There's also a potential love triangle developing, but the core of the story is, you know, family, coming of age, coming into your own type stuff. Like Yona, she starts out as this spoiled, pampered princess, but throughout the book, she, you know, learns to fend for herself, toughen up, wisen up, through all the trials and tribulations that she faces. So, yeah, I thought this was a really good one. The ending is open-ended, and it alludes to more to come. I know there is a sequel book, and apparently while researching it a little bit, this book is connected to the author's other books. So I don't know, I think I will read the direct sequel to this. I know there's also a book about the stepmother, like a prequel to this, but I think this series is also a prequel to another one of the author's other series. So I don't know if I read this in the wrong order, but I think this was a good standalone piece. It wrapped up nicely with room to go forward. Like, it clearly sets up the next adventure, but I feel like it's satisfying enough to stop here if you don't want to continue. So yeah, I've been dabbling a little bit more in the fantasy genre, and I thought this was a good one to kind of dip my toes in the water a little bit more, for sure. And then the last book I've read so far this month is called Spoiler Alert. I forgot who I saw talking about this book / book series, but the premise intrigued me because it's about two characters who write fanfiction who met through, like, a fanfiction community. And kind of exposing myself here, but I am an avid fanfiction reader, and I've never really seen it portrayed in media, I guess. Like, to the extent of talking about AO3 and, like, tags and tropes and stuff. So I thought this would be a fun one if it kind of explored that side of fandom. So the main character is this woman in her late 30s. The fandom is kind of like a Game of Thrones-esque world. Not stated explicitly, but it's kind of obvious. And she writes fanfiction, she does cosplay, and she posts a picture of her cosplay on Twitter, and she gets a lot of hate about it because she is plus-sized, but one of the actors from the series, it's a TV show, sees all this hate she's getting and asks her on a date on Twitter. So at first she thinks it's kind of like a publicity stunt. They'll just go on one date and be off on their merry way. But once they meet, they kind of forge a genuine connection and decide to try to date that way. But little does the main character know that this actor guy is actually her bestie in the fanfiction writing community. But he has to keep that a secret because a lot of his fanfiction is like alternate retellings of the story because he's unhappy with the direction of the show. And that would be a really bad look for the show if, like, the main actor was coming up with better scripts, essentially, for the show. So he's struggling with living this kind of double life. And also his persona that he displays as, like, a celebrity is this dumb jock, golden retriever type man. So actually, he's living more of, like, a triple life. So throughout the course of their relationship, the main character kind of slowly chips away at his facade. They both have, like, really big traumas in their life, too, that the book spends a lot of time working through. He's dyslexic, and he has a lot of shame about that due to his parents and his upbringing. She has always been a bigger girl, and she has faced intense scrutiny from her family, so that's another aspect of the relationship, kind of trying to heal that way, confront their past, but then also navigate the whole, like, celebrity fan / like, commoner type dynamic, as well as their fandom and fanfiction stuff. So honestly, I feel like it was too much. It got a little bit messy in my opinion. They didn't have very good communication, which was frustrating. The main character especially would get very triggered at points by things that he would say. He has no idea what upset her, and instead of communicating, she'll, like, you know, just retreat as a defense mechanism, which, you know, is valid, but it's kind of frustrating as a reader, and that continued throughout the book. So I don't know, this book had everything I would want on paper, but kind of like Happy Place, the execution was not the best in my opinion. Maybe I can't relate as much because I don't struggle with the same issues as these characters. So I don't know, I think this could really resonate with a lot of people, but for me it kind of turned into a little bit of a chore, because it felt like we were just repeating the same patterns, and the relationship ended up feeling very surface level because a lot of the book was them kind of dealing with their own things, and all these little side quests that convoluted the story. So yeah, I know there's a couple more books in the series focusing on other characters, but none of the characters in this book were super memorable to me in general. I'm not attached to them in any way, so I don't think I'll be continuing the series. I'm glad I read it, but I wish it would have focused on some aspects more than others. and had a little bit more focus in the story. So yeah, that is all the books I've read so far this month, and I'll be back if I read more. Okay, hello, I have read one more book for the month, and that is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. So I'm trying to get through my physical TBR now that I have, and I pulled this one off the shelf. I have read The Paris Apartment by this author, and I thought that one was okay, honestly. And at first I thought this one was gonna end up just being kind of okay as well, but I was pleasantly surprised. So The Guest List is about this wedding that is gonna be held on this remote island off the coast of Ireland. The groom is this kind of B-list actor. The bride is the founder of this kind of famous magazine. But everyone involved in this wedding has kind of a secret, some more sinister than others, and you slowly start to unravel kind of the tangled web of lies and mess. None of the characters are particularly likable, and at first it was kind of just okay. You were getting to know everyone, their stories. We have this creepy kind of atmosphere of this island. It's very, you know, stormy, foggy, ominous. There's graveyards. There's no one else inhabiting the island except for the person that owns kind of like the marquee that they're at. But in the last kind of 100 pages, everything ramps up to 100. I didn't see a lot of the twist coming, and the ending was super satisfying. So I would recommend if you want kind of a quick thriller mystery type story. I will include the triggers though, because there's some pretty dark topics in this. They're potentially a little bit of spoilers, but I think it's worth it to warn people. But yeah, I'm glad I picked this one off my shelf, and hopefully I can stay away from the library and start chipping away a little bit more at my physical TBR. So yeah, I think that is it for the month. Honestly, I didn't have time to really listen to any music. I was traveling for work this month. I had a lot of busyness at work. I had some events I went to. It was just all around a lot. Even for the manga, like all the manga I showed, I kind of read in the past couple days because I realized I was so behind and I wanted to get some more stuff read for Pride, so the books were kind of my lifeline this month. I just found them much easier to read. I could take these on the bus with me, on the plane, listen to the audiobooks, whatever. So yeah, in the end it turned out to be a pretty good reading month, but in the moment, the process of it was a little wonky for me this month. I didn't watch any shows, didn't watch any movies, so yeah, I guess it'll just be a manga and book type of media log month. Hope you enjoyed regardless. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.